Let's go to the phones, talk a little 2016 news, also Ted Cruz in the news, and as always, Donald Trump is in the news. Matt Mackowiak joining us this morning, GOP political strategist, co-founder of MustReadTexas.com. Matt, good morning. How are you?
Hey, Chad. I'm doing great. Good morning.
I appreciate you coming on. Let's start off with Ted Cruz. He made news over the weekend, calling out Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, calling him a liar on the Senate floor. And then there was some clashing yesterday. And as the Texas Tribune puts it, Cruz and Cornyn clash on the Senate floor. What's going on with this whole argument and debate over the Export-Import Bank? And what do our listeners need to know about this debate?
Yeah, look, I mean, from everything I can read into this, I think there are two sides to the story. It's clear that Cruz believes that Senate Majority Leader McConnell promised him that the Export-Import Bank would not get a vote as part of a deal cut with Democrats to pass the Trade Promotion Authority, which passed a few weeks ago. The Export-Import Bank provides loan guarantees, in many cases, to major corporations in the U.S. that do business overseas. It's very big for companies like GE and particularly Boeing. And so you put hundreds of millions of dollars on the line. And so for a lot of conservatives, they think that's crony capitalism. They want to get rid of it. And so it expired. I forget if it was June. I think it was June 30th. It expired. But the lobby and some Republicans, Chamber of Commerce types, want to extend the reauthorize essentially the Export-Import Bank. So Cruz, worked to try to kill that, and they felt like they had killed it, and it sort of came back out of nowhere. McConnell offered it as an amendment to the highway bill, which I think is passing today, or maybe passed yesterday. I think it's passing today. So look, the question is whether McConnell really did cut a deal. I mean, Cruz says McConnell told every Republican senator at a Senate Republican lunch that he didn't cut a deal to pass TPA with Democratic votes by promising that he would bring back the Export-Import Bank. What's striking here is that Cruz went on the Senate floor and called McConnell a liar, and you very rarely, perhaps never, see that in the U.S. Senate. There's a certain level of decorum that happens within the body. In fact, the Senate rules prohibit questioning the integrity of another senator on the Senate floor. I mean, Cruz could have done that in a media interview, but he can't do it on the Senate floor. And what's most striking to me, though, about this, Chad, is that Cruz kind of used perceived Senate rules to appeal the ruling of the chair to essentially try to get a couple of his amendments offered to the highway bill. McConnell kind of shut down all the amendments to the highway bill. And he couldn't even get one senator to second his request.
Right.
So not Marco Rubio, not Mike Lee, none of the strong conservatives even seconded his request to appeal the ruling of the chair. So, and the Export-Import Bank passed with 66 or 67 votes. And so from McConnell's standpoint, he feels like, look, if it has that much support, there's very little that I can do. The Democrats can force a vote anytime they want. So, look, this was a fairly ugly chapter. You could just, perhaps say this has something to do with Cruz being, getting less attention because of Trump, all the attention Trump's getting. But this was a pretty unusual moment in the history of the U.S. Senate.
But are people really surprised because Ted Cruz, he's not a Republican who's held back on criticism. Maybe he hasn't, maybe he has held back a little bit on the Senate floor. But it's one of those actions where when I look at it, this is vintage Cruz almost. Someone who has taken on Mitch McConnell and some of the other establishment types. And, really, if you do tie it in with, his presidential campaign, this is probably what Cruz's base wants to hear, right?
Yeah, to some extent. Look, I think the conservative base does not like our leadership in the House and Senate. They don't like Boehner and McConnell. And Cruz was featured on Rush Limbaugh on Friday, and Rush never has guests on. We had him for a 15 or 20-minute segment to talk about this.
Right. So
I think that there was political benefit to Cruz probably from a fundraising standpoint, but from a conservative base standpoint as well. But this to me, watching this to me, I kind of felt like it was a little bit of a kamikaze mission. And you're not very effective in the U.S. Senate when you do things all on your own. If McConnell had really made that promise, Cruz should have banded together with a few other members who could have vouched for what he was saying, because there is strength in numbers politically, and he would have needed a second to appeal the ruling of the chair. He was trying to get a defund Planned Parenthood amendment offered, and he was trying to also get, I think, Rubio's amendment that would require Iran to recognize the existence of Israel as part of the Iran deal. But if you can't even get a second senator to support what you're trying to do, it really shows that you're being pretty ineffective. So I think the net impact of this is that Cruz's impact as a U.S. senator is going to be minimal going forward. He's going to be persona non grata within the Senate Republican leadership. And if you're a conservative, you may think that's great. But if you're a Texan, you might be wondering, what is Cruz going to be doing the rest of his Senate term?
Interesting. What do you think? And you touched on leadership. Obviously, John Cornyn fits into that leadership. Where do we see this relationship between Cornyn and Cruz going forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's a delicate subject. One of the other things that's interesting is that McConnell and Cornyn both voted against the Export-Import Bank reauthorization. Harry Reid used to run the Senate in such a way that nothing he voted against would pass or even get a vote, really by using tools that had never been used before. In this case, McConnell allowed an amendment for something that he personally opposed. But look, I think the Cornyn-Cruz relationship is not good, to be candid about it. Look, Cornyn has a different job than Cruz does. Cruz is running for president. Cornyn is the number 2 Republican in the leadership as the majority whip. He has to count votes. He has to get things done. He represents Texas, but he also, in a way, represents the entire Republican Party and the entire Republican Conference of 54 U.S. senators. So they have different jobs. They have different missions. I don't think Cornyn rebuked Cruz that sharply. He did, I think, make a speech on the Senate floor talking about decorum on the Senate floor and, wishing that we'd, abide those rules. But yeah, look, I don't think the relationship is that strong. I mean, I think on some things they're very much united when it comes to border security and foreign policy and things like that. But I don't think the relationship is very strong right now. Cornyn and McConnell are obviously locking arms together as the number 1 and number 2 Republicans in the Senate, and Cruz is in some cases working against that. And so, look, but Cruz is also not backing down. I mean, he said, look, it doesn't telling the truth is never something that goes against decorum. So I don't think we've seen the end of this fight. We've seen the end of this chapter, but not the end of this fight.
Visiting with Matt Mackowiak. Let's move on, take a look at election 2016. According to some of the newest polling data out, CNN shows that Donald Trump, his polling numbers really haven't been hurt as far as being in the lead. Now, popularity and being trusted, that's a different story. But being in the lead as far as the Republican field goes, Donald Trump's still leading right now. Are you surprised?
Oh, I guess over time you become less and less surprised by the success Trump is having because you just sort of come to expect it. Yes, I'm a little bit surprised his numbers didn't take more of a hit for the McCain comment. I think that is a reflection of really the low opinion most Republicans and conservatives have for McCain, but politically. But the thing I come back to is just that this is entirely a sort of a media campaign that Trump is running. And I think he's benefited by getting, half of the overall, or maybe more than half of the overall press coverage of our presidential candidates is going to Trump. And so, he says outrageous things. It gets a lot of attention. His polls go up, and then the cycle repeats itself. And we've been in that cycle and haven't been able to break from that cycle for the past, month or so. Look, I think we are heading into a new phase here with the first debate on August 6th. It's one thing to see Trump, sort of lead his circus on a stage by himself. It's another to see him on a stage against 9 other impressive presidential candidates that have real substance, real policy, real vision, real experience. And so it'll be interesting to see, do the other Republican candidates, pounce on Trump? How does he handle it? Does he start attacking the other candidates? Does he offer any policy whatsoever? I think Trump is going to be reduced as a political figure at the first debate. I think there's a chance he'll say some outrageous things, but I think more than that, I think the comparison, it's not going to favorably compared to our other candidates.
Right.
So I think there's a chance he's going to be viewed differently after August 6th. But I think we are in this sort of silly season right now where, he can call in to Sunday shows and get huge press attention. No other presidential candidate can call in to a Sunday show on CNN, but Trump can.
Real quickly, do you think Rick Perry makes the first debate?
Boy, he's right on the edge. My guess is he barely makes it, but he's either going to barely make it or barely miss it. I mean, we're talking about 10th of a percentage point in terms of the polling. He certainly needs to be in it. He needs to prove to people that he's not the candidate that he was in 2012. So, yeah, I'm hoping he gets in. I think he's earned the chance, but he's right on the edge. It's going to be really close. My guess is he barely qualifies.
Matt, what can people find on mustreadtexas.com today?
Yeah, Perry was on 2 Sunday shows, so we got those video links up. Obviously, a lot of news about the Cruz-McConnell exchange. You can find all that news and opinion and blog items from across the state of Texas at mustreadtexas.com.
Matt, have a good one, and hopefully everyone will follow you at Matt Mackowiak on Twitter. Get some great information from you on there as well. Thanks for your time, Matt.
Have a great week. Take care.
You too.